Well, hello. Today we will discuss what it was like and what led me to decide that I could no longer take care of my wife Shanna at home and that I should probably move her to a long-term memory care center. I will also share how I made the key decisions of should I move her? Where should I move her to? When should I do it? And how should I do it? Now, this is a significant decision and a very important crossroads on Dementia Road that most, if not all, caregivers will face. It's my hope that you may learn something of value from our experience. Welcome to the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast. I'm your host, Ken Cardita. In this podcast, I share with you my experiences and learnings from the last 13 years as I've walked by the side of my dear wife, Shanna, as she progresses through Alzheimer's disease. It is my desire that you'll find joy and peace while learning to live with your loved one's disease, and not let the disease define you or your loved one. The Surviving Alzheimer's podcast is brought to you by Ascending Minds, LLC. Before we get into today's episode, I'd like to share a comment a listener left on the Apple Podcast platform. He goes by AroundMe123 is his user ID. He left this review back in mid-September. The title was Heartwarming, Heartfelt, and Sincere. Here's what he wrote. Thanks so much, Ken, for sharing your journey with us. So much of what you share is easily relatable to the journey I am experiencing with my wife of almost 55 years. Your delivery is excellent. The calmness of your voice and the sincerity in your belief is an inspiration. I look forward to having you share the rest of your story and commend you for helping others. Thank you. Well, thank you, AroundMe123. I really appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. And I would encourage all of my listeners to leave a review either on whatever podcast platform you're using or on Facebook. You can always go to the Facebook page called the Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast. I'll leave a link in the description to that page and to this episode as well. So last episode, we talked about the early stages of severe dementia and what it was like taking care of Shanna at home. Today I'll cover the last 6 months or so of 2020 and the first couple of months of 2021. As I reflect back, this was one of the more difficult time periods. Shanna's moods were changing, her behavior was changing, and she was rapidly declining. At the beginning of this stage, in mid-June of 2020, is when Shanna first wandered away from our home. Here's what I wrote in my journal and what I learned from that experience. Well, Shanna wandered away from the house for the first time this afternoon. She was resting in bed, and I told her and my son Chris, who was home with her, that I would be back in about 20 minutes. I ran to the store. As I pulled up in the driveway coming home, Chris called me on the phone. He had just noticed that the front door was wide open and Shanna was not in the house. I quickly checked the backyard and then got into the car to look for her. Luckily, I was able to find her in less than 5 minutes. She was at the park, 4 blocks away from our home. It was where we go every day for a walk. When I found her, she was extremely hot as it was 105 degrees outside. She was sweating, thirsty, and very disoriented. I'm not sure she recognized me at first. She was sobbing, not angry, but just sobbing. I actually had to grab her arm for a second to get her to go towards the car. I calmly pleaded with her to come home with me. She finally got into the car after a little while. In the car, I calmly tried to talk to her, but she was just sobbing uncontrollably. So we just went home. After we got home, I got her some water, and she began to cool off a little bit. After a few minutes, she started to recognize that she was back at home and that she felt safe. I tried to ask her a few questions, but I really didn't get any clear answers. I told her that I was glad that I was able to find her. And as I did so, I broke down and started to cry. She actually apologized. She had realized that she was lost and that I was upset. I was able to quickly get a hold of my emotions and reassured her that she was safe and she was okay. For the rest of the day, she was a bit somber and reflective. I recorded the following learnings. I never panicked. I was calm and quickly prayed for her safety and that I would be able to quickly find her. Staying calm allowed me to feel the Spirit and guide me to find her right away. I also wrote, no matter what happens, I have the Lord to help me. I am the one who needs to remain calm and receptive to the Spirit. That was one of a few times Shanna would walk away, and I'll get into more detail when I do a specific episode on wandering. A little bit later, a couple weeks after this happened, this is what I wrote in my journal. July 4th, 2020. An inflection point has been reached. While most people are gathering with family and friends to celebrate the 4th of July, it's just another day here at our house, doing the same routine, dealing with Shanna's Alzheimer's. It's been a hard couple of days. 2 days ago, I was extremely depressed. Yesterday, it was a little bit better. Today, I had an epiphany. I have almost lost my best friend. I say almost because there are moments still, but they're ever decreasing, where Shanna feels love and appreciation for me. But the other 95% of the time, she is either a wall of nothing, no emotion, or she's not happy or upset with me. We were just in the pool, and she did not interact with me at all. I tried to talk with her, play a game with her, but she just preferred to be on her own. For the last few weeks, she has mostly just watched TV and slept during the day. I go in and try to interact with her, but she's not interested. She can hardly communicate a thought to me. Sometimes it's just a few words and stops, or sometimes just gibberish comes out. Today, I even caught myself struggling to complete a simple sentence. I am very tired and a bit despondent. My heart has slowly been breaking for the last 2 years. As time has gone on, the periods of mourning have lengthened and become more frequent. Today I came to the conclusion that we have reached the point that Shanna is beyond feeling when it comes to me. That she mostly just sees me as someone who bosses her around. This described what I was feeling about mid-year 2020. I'd come to the realization that things were changing forever. Shanna at this time started having short periods of time that she did not know who I was. This was very upsetting at first. Luckily, it only happened a handful of times as the year went on. I'll go over those more in detail in a later episode. Now, as the year progressed, she became increasingly more frustrated, upset, and bored. There were many journal entries that related these experiences and how we dealt with it. Now, sprinkled in between these difficult times were some good days as well. This was very much a roller coaster ride of ups and downs for the rest of the year of 2020. 2021 came, and January turned out to be my most difficult month of caregiving in my whole experience. I was at my lowest, struggling to accept where we were at. I was having a really hard time. For most of the earlier part of the year, Shanna allowed me to take care of her, but as the second half of the year came on, it seemed every time I tried to help her get dressed, brush her teeth, take a shower, use the bathroom, she would just fight me. It was a constant battle, it seemed. At this time in January, I wrote this entry that kind of summed up how I was feeling. I just had a complete emotional breakdown right in front of Shanna. This morning I upset her while trying to help her get dressed. We went on a walk, and she seemed a little bit better. I convinced her to go to IHOP so that we can go have some breakfast. She ordered her favorite pancakes with Nutella, and when they brought the order, she chose not to eat it. This made me very frustrated. When we got home, I was angry and frustrated. And once again, tried to have a talk with her about it. When will I ever learn? Then I wrote these in all caps. She will never be able to talk about her emotions. That time has passed. I must stop. Probe that she can be her old self. I have lost her. ... As I realize these things and the fact that I'm torturing myself and driving her away from me by attempting to get back to a more normal time, I just broke down and cried uncontrollably. And she was compassionate, but mostly confused. After a couple of minutes, I regained my composure and I apologized to her. The first thing I thought to do was to come here and write in the journal. I am so tired of driving myself crazy and just have to accept things are where they are, and they will most likely get harder. That was a sobering entry. Even as I reread that, it brought back the feelings that I felt at this time. Very difficult, very hard, each and every day, not knowing which version of Shanna I would wake up to. I got so frustrated with her, and now that time has passed, I realize she couldn't control it. It was just the disease doing its thing. At this part of our journey and before, I would often call my daughter Emily and talk with her and blow off some steam. She was my rock. She listened and gave good ideas. Around this time, I had a chat with her, and I told her I realized I needed to start looking into long-term care facilities or respite facilities. And I told her that I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, or maybe sooner, that I would no longer be able to take care of Shanna, her mom, and that I might have to get professionals involved. But maybe I would try more in-home care. On that note, Emily started researching facilities in the area and was encouraging me to start looking. This was the first serious time that I considered long-term care facilities. There was a lot of unknowns. I was honestly afraid of dealing with all the change that would occur. So I struggled with this. Interestingly enough, about 10 days later, I had our next scheduled appointment with Dr. P at the Banner Alzheimer's Institute. Now, I've had quite a few discussions with her. All during COVID, we met over video chat. And I would tell her what's going on with Shanna, and we would make changes in her medication. We would try different things. She was quite helpful. This time was a little different. I could see by the look on her face. She was very serious, and she wanted to talk to me about something very serious. And then she said, "Ken, have you considered moving Shanna to a memory care facility?" And I told her, yeah, I just started talking about that with my daughter. Then we had a quite lengthy and honest discussion about the matter. She was very helpful. She shared quite a few things with me. I recorded the following things as I recapped our discussion in my journal. She thinks Shanna will live maybe another couple of years. She agrees that her decline has been very rapid and that this is common with people with early onset Alzheimer's. She thinks Shanna would do much better in a larger memory care facility rather than a small group home, and we talked about the differences. And I agreed with her for this time Shanna needed more stimulation. And she also agreed that it would be a good idea for me to start investigating my placement options for Shanna. She told me that her experience had shown her, from all the different patients she's worked with over the years, that admitting someone earlier rather than later in this progression of the disease is better both for the patient and the caregiver, that if you wait too long, the adjustment may be too difficult for the loved one. And she thought that Shanna was in a good place. And as it turns out, in hindsight, years later, she was spot on. Shanna was at the perfect sweet spot to do this transition. She also cautioned me and advised me not to let this process drag out, as she knew I would torture myself if I dragged it out over months and months. We had a discussion. I asked, how do you actually move a person? Do you tell them? Do you surprise them? What has worked best? And she described the following scenario as what she suggested. While I'm taking her out to lunch, other family members are moving her stuff and setting up her room for her in the memory care facility. And while we're at lunch, pretend I get a phone call and I tell her that something is really wrong with the house. It needs to be repaired and it's not safe to go back home. But Shanna, I found a safe place for you to stay for a while. And then take her to the memory care facility, introduce her to the staff, tell her that I'll have to go and take care of the house and I'll be back when I get it fixed, and then leave her there. Dr. P said, yes, this sounds cold, but it is easier on the patient. And that's been her observation. She also told me that recently another patient chose not to follow that advice, told their loved one that they were moving them. It caused a great amount of anxiety. And when they tried to move her, it was a nightmare, and she actually had to come home within 24 hours of the move. Needless to say, when I heard this, I was quite in a state of shock. I especially had a difficult time dealing with this method of transitioning. My initial reaction was, there is no way in hell that I'm going to do this to Shanna. I can't betray her. I can't do this. As the days and weeks rolled on, I thought more about this. It set a little bit better with me, but I still had a lot of hesitation about it right up until we did it. I was horrified to think of what might happen, that all the things that Shanna would miss out over the next few months if I moved her soon. I was saddened to think that we already had experienced the last time of doing things together at home, like we had already had our last Christmas together, our last anniversary at home. I did have a sense of relief, though, that my full-time caregiving days would soon be over in a few months. I was impressed to feel that I would need to cherish these last few weeks and months and have no regrets when it came time to place her. I also realized that I really needed to stay close to Heavenly Father over the next little while, as I had many decisions to make, and that I would ask for His help to guide me of where and when and how to do this. I sure realized I had a lot of emotions to process in the near future. Now, over the next week, I talked to each of my 5 children and Shanna's sisters. They were very supportive, all of them, and they all trusted that I was doing what was best for both Shanna and myself. Some of my children even encouraged me to do it sooner. My daughter, as I said, was looking at places and sending me emails with places that she was looking into. Well, how did I actually come to these decisions? Throughout my life, when I have made major decisions of moving, employment, should I marry Shanna? These were all matters of prayer and fasting. I would make my decision, and then I would ask Heavenly Father what He thought about my decisions. And many times I would receive spiritual confirmations of these decisions. In hindsight, just about every major decision that I prayed about, I did receive some amount of guidance. So now, as I was making one of the most important decisions I would ever make, I decided to pray about 4 separate questions. First one was, should I move her? The next one was, if I should move her, where should I move her to? And when should I do it? And finally, how should I go about doing it? So I went over these things one at a time. I started with the if. And on February 24th, I recorded this in my journal. Well, it's been another roller coaster week for me emotionally. Over the weekend, I did receive my confirmation from Heavenly Father that He approves of me moving Shanna into a memory care facility. I received this by having multiple impressions that she will have more fun and enjoyment in a structured care place. A couple of days later, I wound up having a severe kidney stone attack. And for me, this was number 10. Over the last dozen or so years, I've had kidney stones with multiple surgeries. Well, I wound up having to get surgery this time as well. As I sat in the hospital at the end of February over the weekend, I was grateful that my daughter was in town and my family was able to take care of Shanna for a couple of days while I was in the hospital getting my surgery. This gave me plenty of time to think about my decision and my confirmation. Well, the next step was, where should I move her to? Again, God put someone very special in our path. I was getting in-home care from a company that my friend owned. I asked Bryce, I said, hey, do you know anywhere that's a good memory care facility? He goes, I know just the person to connect you with. Well, he connected me with Melissa. Melissa and Jay, her husband, have a business. They're kind of like realtors for long-term care. They meet with their clients, they go over their needs, their priorities, their budget, and they help them find a place. They arrange for visits, and they are a great sounding board. They won't make a decision for you, but Melissa really helped me. So over the course of the next couple of weeks, I talked with her over the phone, met with her in person, introduced her to Shanna, went over all of my priorities and my budget and what I was looking for in a memory care facility. She went and did her homework, and she arranged for 4 or 5 visits with me. And I invited my daughter to come from out of town to do these visits with me. We made a couple of visits. I'll tell you, the very first couple of places we went to, it was kind of shocking to walk through a memory care facility. I'd never been to one. It was quite depressing, quite honestly. Some of the decor, the people were not happy. It just seemed real dreary. I couldn't see Shanna in some of these places. One of the places we went to, I got a good feeling about. I'll call it QP. It's where Shanna eventually went to. But I visited there the second and third time, and that's when I started to get a good feeling about the place. Here's a journal entry that records that event. Last Thursday, Shanna's friend Julie came over and stayed with her for about 90 minutes. On the spur of the moment, I called QP and went there to just have a surprise visit. I met with the head nurse and the moving coordinator. While I was there, I had multiple instances that I felt that this was the best place for Shanna at this time. I do want to make my decision in the coming week and take it to Heavenly Father, but at this point, after that second visit, I'm 90% sure it'll be at QP. I finally did get that confirmation while I was there on my third visit. Now, this didn't mean everything was going to be smooth and positive and perfect, but I did know that this was the right place for her at the right time. I got to know the staff. I talked to the executive director. I talked to all of the key staff people and made multiple visits before I made my decision and before I moved her in. And this helped me feel comfortable with that choice. The next question was when. Originally, I thought I would wait till the end of the summer, but I knew that would be too difficult for both of us because last summer was really hard. I recorded this on March the 3rd. It has been a bit of an emotional week again, as Emily and I visited 3 more memory care facilities. Earlier this week, I was waffling on if I should move Shanna or not. I felt that April would be as soon as possible that I could do this after visiting the memory care places and learning everything that I would need to do in preparation. Yesterday, I felt like I was rushing into things, but after talking with Emily and my son Greg, we all felt it was better not to drag this out. So as of today, looking to do this as soon as possible. And in fact, after I'd made my decision a few days later with QP, we decided on moving in Shanna on April 5th, just a month after I had made this decision of when. The last question was, how do I do this? I had a month to prepare. As I said earlier, I wrestled back and forth with, as I call it, ambushing Shanna with this move. But I thought that was the best thing because I could not come up with anything better. Now, I did take what Dr. P had suggested, and I tweaked it quite a bit. What I basically did was, the morning of the move, my son Chris and I went and moved all of her stuff, while my daughter Emily, who was in town, occupied Shanna's time. Then Emily, myself, and Mariah, who was our in-home caregiver, who knew Shanna quite well by this time, went with her to the memory care facility. And then I would tell her that I got a phone call and something was wrong with the house and I needed to go deal with it. But they had a room ready for her, and I walked Shanna to her room and showed her room, showed her all the pictures on the wall of our family. And I said, you can stay here for a while until I get things fixed at home. I got up and said, I need to go. I will give more details about that in my next episode. To summarize where my feelings were at this time, here's a journal entry from a few weeks before I moved her in. I can tell I'm worn out and that I am ready to retire from being a full-time caregiver. We seem to just be marking time. She really does not interact with me at all, other than to laugh at something on the TV together, or maybe respond to my requests for getting her dressed or what she wants to eat. She truly is gone. I see a glimpse here and there, but she is in her own world. She just loves music and Disney movies, and I'm happy for that. It's amazing to see how things have changed so much in the last few months. I think things will continue to change at a very fast pace. But she will finally be cared for by a team of professionals, and I will just have to try and be as much of a part of her life as things will allow. I'll have to be very flexible, considering we're dealing with COVID restrictions and I don't know how often I can visit. Now, there were many logistical things to do in that last month. I had to buy furniture, pick out which of her clothes and belongings to bring for the move. I had to plan on setting up her room and the actual move itself. There was a ton of paperwork for me to fill out. There were some medical tests for Shanna to take prior to her admittance. I had to work with a pharmacy change and all these different detail things. I was very busy in that last month. That takes us up to the last week or so, and I'm going to stop telling the story at this point and pick it up at the next episode, where I will go into great detail that week prior to and the week after moving her, as those were very emotional times for both of us. But before I go, I want to talk about a couple lessons that I learned at this time. The biggest lesson that was reiterated to me was that God was always there. He was always at our side. I just needed to choose to ask and listen. Here's what I recorded in my journal at this time. I do feel close to Heavenly Father. I feel confident that I've received the requested guidance. I just have to put my head down and make all of the necessary arrangements and get my family to help me as much as possible. I think I will be relieved once the transition is completed and Shanna is comfortable in her new home. And I will have to figure out what my new role and place in all of this is. I need to be willing and mourn and let go of what was, and to learn to accept this new reality for us. When I did that, it eventually allowed me not to get stuck, and I could eventually move forward emotionally. Here's what I wrote as I began this transition. Today was a bit of a tough day for me emotionally. For the last few days, I've been struggling with depression. I've been grieving over Shanna fading so much. I'm feeling stifled in general. I feel like I'm in an endless rut. I know that I can do something about each of these things, and I've been trying. I think today I just let myself once again get frustrated. Shanna does not even enjoy most of our walks anymore. He just wants to get them over with. At one point today, I realized that I was feeling down, and I tried to apologize to Shanna for being down and frustrated. She was watching Mary Poppins as I walked in. She was singing along to the songs, and she looked so innocent and childlike. I just broke down in tears. I was feeling so many mixed emotions at that moment. Each time that day I got emotional, I tried to talk to Shanna. Afterwards, she was so sweet. She showed her concern for me. And at the end of the day, I told her how much I appreciated her support. As you can tell, just retelling this is very emotional. I went on to write later that night, I really don't like days like today. I'm focusing too much on my selfish desire to have my life back to normal. But my life will never be normal. I've lost my best friend, and I'm losing my wife. That has created a huge hole in my heart. And it will probably be that way for the rest of my life. But even with all this negative emotion, I still see Heavenly Father showing tender mercies through the acts of other people who are concerned about Shanna and myself. In retrospect, this comment was a little bit off, a little bit wrong, as I would come to learn in the months and year ahead that I would learn to accept our new normal and that I would feel joy once again. Now, as I prepared this episode by rereading my journal and even talking about it, I realized there was so much more that I could have included. But I've decided that I would talk about many of these experiences in future episodes and focus on topics such as wandering, using adult day centers, in-home care and what that was like. Each of these could be their own episode. And that today I would just paint the picture using broad brush strokes of this time period. Well, thank you for hanging on. Again, I ask you, please leave a comment on this episode or on any episode on our Facebook page called the Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast. I really appreciate hearing from you. And please let me know if this is helping you. Now, this episode took us up until the week before the move. As you can imagine, that week and the ones that followed were extremely emotional and quite difficult. In our next episode, I will share how both the move and those emotion-filled weeks unfolded and share with you one of the greatest blessings that we both experienced that occurred on Shanna's first week away from home. Thanks for watching an episode of the Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I recommend that you watch the first 13 episodes in order. That way you can learn about our backstory. This will make understanding later episodes much easier. To help you with this, I've created a playlist. It's called Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast in Order. That way you can listen to all the episodes in the order that they were created. The mission of the Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast is to educate and inspire caregivers, family, and friends who are on their own unique journey down dementia road with their loved one. I would really appreciate it if you could share this episode to anyone who you feel would benefit from it. Additional ways for you to help us reach others are to hit the like button for this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to be notified of new episodes. All of these actions will encourage the YouTube algorithm to share this episode and podcast to other potential viewers.